Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm JR, joined tonight by Zach, and we're fired up to tackle three massive college football stories shaking up the Big Ten. First, we dive into Wisconsin's NCAA punishments for recruiting violations. Does it actually pack a punch? We'll discuss. Then we unpack former Alabama running back Justice Haynes comparing Michigan's Sherrone Moore to the legendary Nick Saban. Is this a bold take? Is it legit? We'll talk about it. And then finally, we debate ESPN's college football future power rankings through 2026 by one Adam Rittenberg, analyzing where Big Ten teams stand. You're tuned into the Big Ten Huddle, where we bring fun, hard-hitting analysis of every single Big Ten team, breaking down the best conference in college football. If you're on YouTube, please do hit that like button, subscribe, drop your thoughts in the comment section. If you're listening to this on podcast, give us a 5-star review. Helps us so much, helps us grow, and we would really appreciate it. Give us a 5-star review over there, and then catch our daily episodes Monday through Friday by 9 a.m. on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts, or join us live on YouTube at 9 p.m. Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday nights Eastern Time. Follow us on Twitter/X and Instagram at the Big Ten Huddle. Thank you for joining us. Let's get into it. Welcome in. We appreciate you being here. Zach is back. We appreciate Zach with us once again, with us for a while now. Zach, you're not suspended coming up anytime soon, correct?
Well, I'm being relocated to Bethany Beach for a week. Next week. I hear that the suspension cells. I don't know what I'm talking about. We're just gonna stop with this whole analogy. I'll be here this week. I'll be on vacation with my family next week, and then I'll be back the following week, and then I'm chaplaining a camp the following week. So it's kind of here and there.
Week off.
Yeah.
We'll make it work. Well, Zach, we're glad to have you here for this week, and we're glad to have people in the comments with us.
Hella dog.
Okay, Hella Dog. Appreciate you being here. Said say it ain't so. Lowly Gopher fan. I actually got some good things to say about the Gophers tonight. So I said some not so good things about them in the house settlement thing. I got some good things to say about them tonight. So don't worry.
Gopher fans were going nuts on us last week.
I tried to explain it to them, but they did not like my but what I've learned is everybody thinks the house settlement is good for them. And I think as the Big Ten, it is overall good for the Big Ten. But when you're comparing yourself, like if you're comparing yourself to G5 teams, yes, it's good for you. But when you're comparing yourself to other Big Ten teams, I don't think it's good for every team. But I'll leave it at that. We've already discussed that. So if you want to go back, you can check that out. Philip is here. He says Zach's suspension upheld. Pay his fine. Zach, we'll let you go free from the fine this time, but don't let it happen again.
I feel like at this point I owe Philip and the rest of the Illini Nation like 52 jerseys. That's what I feel like right now, and I'm too far in the hole at this point.
We'll forgive you. We'll forgive.
Thank you.
Wolverine. Hello, Wolverine. Glad to have you here. We appreciate you being here. Dylan, DK. Gentlemen, good to see you, Dylan.
What's up, DK?
Dylan, I might be sending you a message. We might have a Dylan episode coming up with Zach on. So in that episode, you can expect there to be not much sustenance, more laughs. But that's what Dylan brings to the table. We appreciate it. Billy, hey gentlemen, and JR. Appreciate you being here, Billy. And Dylan says, no glasses tonight, Zach. What's up with no glasses?
I've had contacts in since this morning. I preached on Father's Day, no less. Happy Father's Day to fathers, by the way. But I had my contacts in and I've been too lazy to take them out.
It's okay. We'll forgive. No, Dylan, not a 4-hour long show. Not happening. All right, Zach, we got a lot to get to tonight. You ready to do this?
Let's do it.
All right. Zach, the NCAA has issued a punishment against Wisconsin. Everybody's talking about the Michigan punishment, and who knows? We're not talking about that. I mean, at this point, we'll talk about it when it happens. If you notice, there's been hearings and all this stuff, and we've not talked about it because at this point, I don't have anything more to say until anything actually happens. So, but we do have an NCAA punishment on Wisconsin for recruiting violations. Zach, this is from 2023, I believe, so around the same time as Michigan with their stuff going on, and they've come down hard on one Greg Scruggs and Steinecker, who what's Steinecker's first name? Did I miss it?
Max
Max.
Steinecker.
Okay, all right. Max Steinecker, 1 year show cause for each of them. If they are to be reinstated, there will be recruiting communication issues. But Greg Scruggs, I believe he moved on to Michigan, and then he got fired from there for, I believe, a DUI. And then a $25,000 fine for the school. I mean, that's like chump change at this point. We're spending $20.5 million on rosters, so don't really know how much $25,000 actually does. And then 1 year of probation. Zach, is this actually a punishment in your mind? What are your thoughts here?
So I don't think it's a huge deal from a punishment perspective. So it's kind of one of those NCAA slap on the wrists, like this is stupid kind of a thing. But I do think there is a bigger scope of this, which is we have been waiting for Luke Fickell to make his mark with Wisconsin, and they have gone 6-7 and 5-7. And now we find out that they are incompetent in how they've been recruiting. I mean, if you look at this whole thing, 139 calls to 48 recruits that violated recruiting rules. The staff placed 117 calls before the first day such calls were allowed, and 22 calls weren't permitted because a permissible call to that recruit already had been made between April 15th and May 31st, 2023. That's from Badger Extra. I believe Colton Bartholomew, the writer on that article.
Which, by the way, Colton Bartholomew, great reporter. I've read his stuff multiple times. Really, really good stuff on Wisconsin over there. Sorry, go ahead, Zach.
Yeah. And so I don't think any of this was malicious, but it continues to create the narrative that Luke Fickell, as he's jumped to the big leagues, has been out of his depth. And this is just another observation, another piece of evidence that adds to that narrative. And so I think that's the biggest issue here, right? Like Fickell can't recruit for like a week. Right? But Wisconsin is on probation, which means they are going to be more heavily scrutinized by the NCAA, which again, I don't think Fickell is trying to make violations, right? I don't think they're trying to do anything like that. But I think it just adds to a narrative to the higher leadership of that institution to say, is Fickell really the guy? He seems kind of aloof right now. And I'm not saying that's true, but that's, I think, going to add to that narrative.
I think Fickell just saw Michigan won a national championship when they, had recruiting violations. So he's like, let's do it.
No.
No, Fickell would never do that. I'm just kidding. No, I do think you make a good point. I think, there was the aspect here of this rule was changed right after this year, I believe. So there could be an aspect there of they thought the rule was changed or the rule, would have been changed. I don't know. Like there are some aspects of that there. I know Ohio State, for instance, thought that the rule was going to change, that you could have like quality control people and stuff like that be on-field coaches in 2023. That rule didn't actually take place until 2024. So they hired all of these guys, like if you remember, I think it was the Green Bay Packers former offensive coordinator, forgetting what his name was, to help with the offensive line. Well, he was never actually able to help with the offensive line because that rule didn't get passed. Now, Ohio State didn't break that rule, at least not to my knowledge. They broke that rule. I've not seen anything saying they did. Now, they didn't break that rule, but still, there are aspects of thinking a rule is going to change and planning for those things. So I want to give Wisconsin the benefit of the doubt here, but at the end of the day, like if you're if you're a Wisconsin fan, this punishment doesn't do anything. It continues to show how spineless the NCAA is. And honestly, if I'm a Michigan fan, I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, yeah, they continue to not really do a whole lot here. I would say that, Michigan or not Michigan, Wisconsin seemed to be a whole lot more compliant and revealing with their information, possibly. But at the end of the day, you still like Ohio State was revealing with their stuff and they still got a bowl ban. So does it really matter? Who knows? We'll see. But at the end of the day, to me, this is a nothing punishment.
Yeah.
Who cares? And the NCAA continues to be spineless and not really do all that much. That's what I tell everybody. When people tell me, oh, Michigan's going to get the hammer or whatever else, it's like, okay, they might. But what have you seen from the NCAA to show that they actually are going to do anything? Like they are giving show causes to coaches here that it means nothing. Right.
Yeah.
Like Greg Scruggs went to Michigan. Now he's not there anymore. So what's the NCAA going to do? They're just going to continue to enforce things against coaches. It's not going to matter. There was a really good interview that Urban Meyer did. I don't know if it's an interview. No, it was on his podcast, The Triple Option, where he was talking about this stuff, and he was talking about how decisive and quick the punishments need to be on coaches very quickly and actually hurt them. Because when you have punishments like this 2 years later, and the coach either isn't even in football anymore, or they're not, I don't know, full transparency, I don't know what Greg Scruggs is right now, but I know he's not in the Big Ten. So it doesn't, and he's not with Wisconsin, so it doesn't really do anything. Like, Wisconsin has moved on. It is what it is. And I think it continues to show the NCAA is way over their head trying to do anything against this stuff. And also, if I'm Wisconsin, how pissed am I about everything that happened with the cornerback and Miami in the transfer portal this last time? You're getting in trouble for 100 and some calls when there was clear rampant tampering by Miami on your roster. Like, it's just a joke. The NCAA is a joke.
I'm pretty sure Miami just has a wheel that they spin, and it's the wheel of inconsequential punishment, and they spin it, and it's like some doofus that's just, they're, oh, this one's going to be great. This is going to be great. Yes. Show cause for coaches that aren't there. That's it. It's stupid. It's just stupid. Yeah, buy our shirt. The NCAA stinks.
Yes, we have a shirt. You can go to the link in the description and you can go buy that shirt and wear it proudly, because the NCAA does indeed stink. And there's no other way around it.
Yeah.
All right. Zach, Justice Haynes, running back from Alabama, played under Nick Saban for a year, his freshman year. He's got some thoughts about Sherrone Moore and how Sherrone Moore is like a young Nick Saban. Here's what he says. He says, Moore reminds me of a young Coach Saban in a lot of ways. He's going to kick it with you. He's going to have fun with you. But then there is also a time to be serious and time to be disciplined. Everything is discipline oriented around there. We train differently from anyone else in the country. We work harder than anyone in the country, and we're all about running the ball and stopping the run. That's what we pride ourselves on, and that's ultimately what led to my decision. I knew they were going to value the running back position, and I knew I could thrive in the offense. Your thoughts on Justice Haynes' comparison of Sherrone Moore to Nick Saban?
So it's a good reminder that Justice Haynes is what, a sophomore running back?
Junior.
Okay. So he saw the first year of Nick Saban's tenure, or the last year of Nick Saban's tenure, the first year of Kalen DeBoer's tenure, and now he's gone through spring practice for Michigan under Sherrone Moore. So context is important, right? Because what he experienced for 1 year under Nick Saban and what he's experienced in spring training is more similar than what he experienced with a year under Kalen DeBoer. That's what I'm getting from this. And so I know there's going to be a lot of people out there, like non-Michigan fans, who are going to be like, what an idiot. And there's going to be a lot of Michigan fans that are sitting here saying, we've got the second coming. And I think you just understand it's a junior running back who is a very good player, who is comparing cultures. and comparing 1 year to 1 year. And if you were to say, I think Sherrone Moore is more like Nick Saban than, say, Lincoln Riley, yeah, I would agree with that. And I think they're probably have similar backgrounds if you look at Sherrone Moore's coaching tree, where he comes from with Jim Harbaugh. Toughness, running the football, discipline, culture. Now, here's the thing. Like, there's 30 schools that run on culture, right? We just heard about it with Ohio State. We've heard about it with Penn State. We've heard about it with Michigan. So I think people are going to overblow this and say, well, of course, Sherrone Moore is not Nick Saban. Fine, sure. But I think a lot of what Justice Haynes is saying, I think speaks to the culture that Sherrone Moore wants to instill. And he's dead right about the fact that they want to run the football, and he's going to be featured in that offense, probably more so than Kalen DeBoer would at Alabama.
I think Justice Haynes saw the I don't want to say the worst version, because it's not the worst. It's not like Nick Saban wasn't good on his way out, but Justice Haynes saw the most frustrated version of Nick Saban. Justice Haynes saw a very weak coach in Kalen DeBoer last year. Now, I'm not trying to say Kalen DeBoer is a weak coach. I'm just saying last year he was. From every indication, Kalen DeBoer has not been this way, but reading interviews and stuff coming out about Kalen DeBoer last year, sounds like the players kind of ran that program last year. Sounds like there was no accountability. There was really no discipline. It was just kind of do whatever you want. And if Sherrone Moore is continuing on to take things the way that Jim Harbaugh did, right, with discipline and working hard, run the ball, I mean, all that stuff, that really seems like what Sherrone Moore is trying to do, is he's trying to take Jim Harbaugh's culture and just kind of continue it forward. Like, it seems like this is definitely something that would seem more like Saban than probably what Justice Haynes has experienced so far. Do I think that Sherrone Moore is the second coming of Nick Saban? I've seen no indication of that in just 1 year of college football. Could he be the next Nick Saban? Maybe. I don't know.
Yep.
We'll have to see how his career pans out. I would bet not, but guess what? I would also bet nobody's going to be the next Nick Saban. So it's not anything against Sherrone Moore. I just think Nick Saban was the greatest coach ever. And it's the same thing as Jeremiah Smith. Right? Everybody wants their freshman to be the next Jeremiah Smith. At the end of the day, it doesn't happen. And so it's not going to happen again all that quickly, if ever. So the same thing goes with Nick Saban here. Ohio State fans do the same thing with comparing Ryan Day to Nick Saban. I think there are things that Ryan Day could be on that trajectory of being a very good coach, being a legendary coach. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to project anybody is going to be the next Nick Saban, because Nick Sabans are just that rare, and it doesn't happen all that often, especially in this day and age of college football where parity is higher than it has ever been. I shouldn't say that it's been in the entire time I can remember and watching college football.
Yep. Yeah, and you have to remember, it's a 20-year-old kid, so he's basing it off of what he's experienced, and that's it. But he's not thinking historic, or maybe he is, but I think reasonable people will take this and say, oh, he runs a tough program. He runs a disciplined program. The culture's good. They run the football. They're hard nosed. I think Dave's here. He mentioned this, like, he isn't Saban, but more runs stuff more similar than DeBoer. Like, yeah. So, and like, listen, DeBoer had a bad year last year, and I don't think he ran the program well, but he's been a good coach everywhere else he's went. So I think it's just comparing cultures. So I think
I agree.
Yeah. So do you know what prompted Billy Tuesday asked a good question? Why is Justice Haynes even talking about this? Do you know what prompted this?
Apparently it was just an interview with Pete Nakos. And Haynes just kind of started talking about it from the way it sounds. Literally what is written in the article: in a recent interview with Pete Nakos of On3, Haynes took things a step further and likened his new coach to his head coach at Alabama when he was a true freshman. So it's pretty much all the information we're getting there, unless there was something more in the Pete Nakos article, which I don't feel like I want to give out because that's paid information.
That's fair.
So I'm working off this Maize and Brew article right here, but I mean, but let's be honest, like this is what happens. These reporters come in and they start fishing for comments, and that's what they do. And some players are really excited. I think more than anything, it sounds like Justice Haynes is really, really happy with where he's at, and he thinks it's going to be a really good season for him. Which, if I was a running back at Michigan, I'd probably be feeling the same way, because that's what normally happens for Michigan running backs.
Right. Well, and what generates clicks? Player compares former coach Nick Saban to current coach Sherrone Moore. Generational run coming. Yes. Right. And it's like, okay, yeah, okay, cool.
Yes, generational run. Yeah, totally. Totally. All right.
I don't know why I went into that voice. I'm sorry. I'm in a weird mood right now, apparently. But
it's all good. I think it was fitting. I liked it.
Okay.
I liked it.
Nice.
All right, last topic here. Now this one's kind of small. I apologize, but we'll point out the Big Ten teams here, where they are and everything. So ESPN's Adam Rittenberg put together a power ranking of all Power 4 college football teams through 2026. This is where he is projecting they will be, I believe, if I read the article correctly, at the end of 2026. So
yes.
This is what Adam Rittenberg is projecting will happen at the end of the 2026 season. Not this season, but the season after this season. Very difficult to predict this. I am not going to be too harsh on Adam Rittenberg here, just because I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't be able to do it all that accurately. I would maybe be able to do it with the Big Ten, but it's a difficult situation. Zach, what are some of your takeaways and thoughts? I guess here, let me read the Big Ten teams first. So in the top 68, because there's Power 4 teams, I'll read where the Big Ten teams are, and then if you have any thoughts on other teams, we can read where they are. Ohio State is number 2, Oregon number 4, Penn State number 6, Michigan number 13, Illinois number 17, Indiana number 20, USC number 26, Washington number 30, Nebraska 34, Minnesota 40. Pause me if I am missing anybody. Rutgers 43, UCLA 49, Michigan State 51, Wisconsin 54. Yeah, this is small print, guys. I apologize.
Northwestern
58, Maryland 60, and
Purdue 67.
Not dead last. Purdue 67th.
Okay,
Purdue.
My first issue with this list is Mississippi State is ranked way too high. They stink. Didn't
they lose by like 3 touchdowns to Toledo last year?
I think more than that.
It's like 42-17 or something like that.
Yeah, they're terrible. I mean, I get that Houston and Oklahoma State and Maryland aren't that great either, but come on, man. Like, you want to talk about SEC bias? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like, they are awful. Anyway,
bad when you're talking about SEC bias for the last team in the conference.
Oh, they suck. They're so bad. So looking at Big Ten teams, I thought there were a few things that stood out. It is hard to do a list like this, and I give Adam. A lot of people are giving Adam Rittenberg a lot of crap online, and I just want to be clear: this is a hard exercise to do, and I think anybody who sits there says we get this, you get that list right more than he would. I'm going to give credit. He's done the research. He had a lot of good thoughts. I think it's really hard to do a list like this for 68 teams over the next 2 years. So that being said, we get to react to it. And I think that I appreciate some early thoughts. I thought Maryland I actually think they're a little low on Maryland. Like, I think they could be in position to rise if Malik Washington hits. Same thing with UCLA. Like, I know that it's boomer bust potential with Iam Aliava, but I think the NIL settlement helps them. I do think Deshaun Foster is getting into a groove as a coach. I think they could go on a good recruiting run here. Minnesota does feel really low considering how they've developed. The fact that Drake Lindsay is going to be around for probably a few years. Coy Parrish is going to be back next year. So I think they're low. And I think USC is really low. And I'm high on USC. Maybe not. I think into 2026, I really like USC, especially the way they're recruiting right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're. So if I go to the article and see, like, look at the stuff that Adam Rittenberg, like the categories he went by. He went by returning quarterback, likelihood of multi-year quarterback on roster, offensive line / defensive line outlook, roster management, star power, so like an All-American, national award contender, stuff like that, and then coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
I can point to a couple teams here in the Big Ten that seem to be too high because they are not exactly hitting all of these areas, right? Like I get why Michigan is up at 13 because they hit a lot of these areas, right? They don't have a returning quarterback this year, but they have a quarterback who is going to help them in the future. They have had good offensive line play while Sherrone Moore's been there. Last year wasn't as great, but he was a really good offensive line coach when they were there. So you think that gets right. Espinosa's been a very good defensive line coach for them. They obviously have been able to put that together very well. Sherrone Moore, the roster management might seem like a little bit of a question, but you think that gets better with time. And then star power All-Americans. Michigan's going to get those guys. They're going to recruit at that level, most likely, in the future. And then, like I said, coaching staff, like Michigan's going to put together a good coaching staff. They're a big spender for that, and they're going to make sure that happens. So I get why they're up there. A team that I don't get why they're that low, especially when you look at these categories, is Minnesota at 40. Minnesota, yes, they don't have a returning quarterback this season, but likelihood of a multi-year QB on the roster, you have a redshirt freshman in Drake Lindsey who has a big arm and is a big quarterback. Now, he's only a 3-star prospect coming out of high school, but again, 3-star doesn't always mean everything. We'll see how he actually performs rather than what his star ranking was in high school. Offensive line and defensive line outlook. I mean, Minnesota does pretty good on the line of scrimmage. Just ask USC last year. That was a big part of why they were able to do what they did. Star power, they have Coy Parrish this year and next year. So how do you not have star power there? Especially with him playing on potentially both sides of the ball. And then coaching staff, I get it, but there is not anybody in the country that is better to me at maybe Lance Leopold, working on a budget and getting good coaching staff members in your program on that budget. PJ Fleck does it again and again and again. It's one of the reasons why he keeps getting his coaches hired away, because he goes out, he finds good coaches, and then he does a good job as a head coach of developing those coaches. So I can see you saying, well, they're just going to continue losing these coaches. Okay, but the track record of PJ Fleck is that he makes good coaching hires, and even if it's for less money, those guys are going to perform well while they're there. Maybe they don't stay forever because they can go somewhere else and get more money, i.e. Corey Heatherman, but still, this is a situation where PJ Fleck is able to get good coaches consistently and bring them in. So I'm completely perplexed by the Minnesota ranking of 40. If you ask me, they're top 30 at least.
Yeah, I mean, I would think they're borderline top 25. And listen, I'd put them above. I put them above Nebraska. I'd put them above, like certainly above Duke and Colorado, TCU, Auburn. Like I understand the infatuation with Auburn. I put them above Baylor, put them above Georgia Tech. Like they have a track record of developing talent. They have superstars, right? Coy Parrish, Darius Taylor. I know he's probably only going to be there one more year. And listen, people are saying Nebraska should be in the top 20. They've got to prove it.
Nebraska should be in the top 20, but they never are. So how can we actually say they will be or they should be? I believe in Matt Rule, but right now it's just a belief. I have to see it.
Yeah. And I have confidence in Matt Rule. I have confidence in Raiola, but you can only take that confidence so far. Like they haven't proven anything. Like they were excited to win a bowl game against Boston College last year, which was a big deal. But if that's a big deal for Nebraska, then they have a ways to go before they're top 20. Minnesota should be ranked higher. In all honesty.
They should, and I agree with you on USC. The recruiting is there right now. As long as that sticks, which it has indications of it sticking, I believe. I mean, they haven't lost a bunch of recruits ever since the House settlement passed, which is what people told me was going to happen. I said, let's wait and see. Let's see what happens there. A team that seems, and I hate to do this because I do like this team a lot, and I think this team has staying power, but a team that seems to be too high that I think is probably more around the 30 range because they are a team that they're not just going to reload every year. However, they do have a very good head coach, and that's Illinois.
Yep.
Illinois, what happens after Luke Altmaier is gone? Remember, like what's the stuff we're looking at here? Likelihood of a multi-year QB on the roster, offensive line, defensive line outlook. Illinois' defensive line was a struggle last year. Brett Bielema's done a good job, I think, through the portal of addressing that. Hopefully, the defensive line is better this year, but I wouldn't say it's a slam dunk of it's going to be fantastic next year. The offensive line is going to be good this year. They brought back a lot of returners. That's awesome. Does Illinois have an All-American star power on their roster that's going to for sure be there? In the next couple of years. Pat Bryant was excellent last year. He should have been probably in better contention for not bigger teams, a bigger all Big Ten option, in my opinion. But he wasn't an All-American or anything like that. Are they going to have somebody else like that to be in that scenario? I don't know. For me, it's like Illinois kind of, since Brett's been there, ranked, unranked. It depends on how this year goes. If this year goes well, yes, I can definitely see them top 20. If they make the playoffs or they're on the fringe of making the playoffs this year, yes, I feel good about that. But I just question what's going to happen after Luke Altmaier leaves. I think they'll be fine, but I just don't know.
Well, and they lose a ton of senior starters and key senior starters after this year, which, remember, this is the next 2 years. It's not just talking about this year. So, what do you do without Altmaier? Like what you were saying, he is arguably a top 3 quarterback in this league, and you're going to lose him. They lose Arkin at tight end. They lose Xavier Scott at corner. They lose Gabe Jacobs at linebacker. These are guys that are not going to be immediately replaceable. So I
agree.
Yeah, I very much agree with that take. And we love Illinois, right?
Yeah.
I think we both have them on the fringe of playoff contention this year.
I had him in top 10. I have him as a top 10
Oh,
team.
yeah, no, we both have them as top 10 teams. So playoff team. So
yeah. So, and I love Bert. I think Bert's a really good coach, but you look at what happened to Michigan after they brought back all of their players. What happened this past year? 8-5, right? Now you saw flashes, but you couldn't have the consistency throughout the year. Now you could argue because coaching staff, and that's fine. I get that, but there's something about losing all those really good players and having to reload for the next year, and it does matter. Okay, let's talk. Who is the other team on here that I wanted to reference? Michigan State at 51.
Too low.
Is Aiden Childs coming back for another year? Returning quarterback? Likelihood of a multi-year quarterback?
Yeah.
Now, offensive line, I'll give you that. That was not good last year. They did some good things here and there, and I think that they flashed more in some areas than some people give them credit for, but it still was not, an area that was great, and they lost their 2 defensive tackles last year, so that definitely hurt them. I'll give you that. But star power, Nick Marsh, Aiden Childs, coaching staff. It's a really dang good coaching staff at Oregon State, Zach. I think they're way too low on Michigan State. 51 for Michigan State, way, way too low.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's room for them to improve for sure. Can I go with a team that I think is way too high?
Sure.
The Iowa Hawkeyes, way too high.
Okay, you're gonna get the Iowa fans mad at us again.
Yeah,
that's fine.
No, at me.
To let you know, Iowa fans, I'm not saying this. Zach is okay.
Yeah,
I have my thoughts. I will share in just a moment, but I'm gonna give Zach the floor.
Okay, I get there's excitement with Phil Parker, as there should be. Great defensive mind, but we saw what happened with last year's defense. It was mid, and because they lost their best players, and we thought that they were great, like they had other great players. But they could not overcome Cooper DeJean, the loss of Cooper DeJean. They couldn't overcome the loss of several other starters. And now you have more question marks. and there's a lot of hype around Gronowski, but he's only going to be there most likely for a year. And so you're saying maybe a decent offense for a year or decent offense with a year with a defense that has question marks. Kirk Ferentz is 70, right? Phil Parker's not getting any younger. Like, this is a coaching staff that, quite honestly, I think they're moving to the point where maybe they're not as effective as you'd like them to be anymore. And I don't think their roster is good enough. And so for them to be at 23, just a couple teams below Indiana, just even a few teams below Illinois, and I'm just sitting there, I'm like, based on what? I just don't know if I like them at 23. I think they're in the 30s or 40s.
So you would swap them with, say, Minnesota?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Minnesota fans are going to love to hear that. Iowa fans are going to hate you for that.
That's fair. That's fair. And I know
Let us know in the comment section, Iowa fans.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for that.
You're right. No, so I hear what you're saying. I do think that last year was a very important year for Iowa, right? At least for like reputation, right? We talk a lot about Indiana's representation, or not reputation. Reputation. Sorry, I'm getting my words mixed up. We talk a lot about Indiana's reputation this year, right? Indiana probably needs to go at least 9-3 to keep a good reputation. If they go 7-5, 8-4, people are going to label them as like Mel Tucker type of stuff. It's not fair, but it is what it is. I don't think they're going to go 7-5. Just, I'm just saying, if that happens, people are going to, say that is how it went. But Iowa last year had a ton of pieces coming back on defense, right? And they had the experienced quarterback in Cade McNamara, and they had the backup in Brendan Sullivan that was kind of like the guy that Tim Lester wanted. Now, you could argue some of this was because of the quarterback issues. Some of this was because they had injuries at the quarterback position, and I get that. But you also had a star running back in Caleb Johnson last year, and you had one of the most experienced defenses in college football. And I don't think the defense was bad all season. I think the defense had some really good parts of the season. I think the defense was good in that first half against Ohio State. I think the defense performed well against Nebraska and other teams. Like, they performed well against Minnesota. They performed well against Iowa State in the first half. So there were things that went well, but it was those two games of UCLA and Michigan State that really made you wonder, okay, what's going on here? Like, it's like they forgot to tackle in some of these games. And that is not what we've come to know from a Phil Parker defense. So part of this stuff, I can see what you're saying, but at the same time, I'm like, what was that just a mishap, right? Is Kirk Ferentz going to get things together? Is Mark Gronowski going to be the really good player that he should be? Is Tim Lester going to be able to work with him and really have an explosive offense this next year? I think the offense will look better, but if I'm an Iowa fan, it's scary relying on the offense rather than the defense. And this is something I was trying to tell Iowa fans at one point. Like, in the future, not just in the future, but this season, you're relying more on the offense. You're talking about a better wide receiver room. You're talking about a better quarterback. You're relying more on this offense than you are on the defense. The defense is going to reload. It's going to be good still, but is it going to be good enough to carry the offense if the offense is, I'm not going to say they're going to be bad because I don't think that's going to happen, but they don't have Caleb Johnson, right? If one of these running backs doesn't turn into Caleb Johnson, what's going to happen? Like, they have a really good offensive line. I think Reese Vandersea is going to have a good season. I think Mark Gronowski is going to have a good season, but it is perplexing to think about, and it's interesting.
Our guy Jeff McMichael, he says Iowa has the fourth best conference winning percentage in the Big Ten in the 2020s.
They do,
yeah. Which, I think that is helpful. Like, the question, I think you raise a good question. Was last year a turning point for the demise of this program? And demise is too strong.
Yeah, it's not demise. That's
downward downturn. Downturn is probably the better word. Or was it a blip? I think that's the real question.
I think a lot hinges on this season. I don't think we
Yep.
can say anything definitive about Iowa until we see what happens this season. Because like Jeffrey the Greek has said to me multiple times, every year people think Iowa's going to fall off, right? Like every year people say, oh, this is the year. This is the year Iowa falls off and they're not as good or whatever else. And it doesn't happen, right? Like Jeff said, they're fourth in the Big Ten in conference win percentage in the Big Ten in the 2020s. My only thing with that would be they did play in the Big Ten West, right?
Yeah.
And I know Iowa fans hate it when people mention that because it's like, respect what we did. I am respecting you, right? I'm giving you credit here for what you did by referencing the fourth most conference wins in the 2020s. But you also have to recognize that it is a new Big Ten now, and there is more going into it than playing teams that are playing a similar brand of football than you, and you being able to dominate that brand of football, right? It was very telling to me when Iowa did a very good job of playing in the Big Ten West in, 2023, but then when they played Penn State, they lost 31-0.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and I think just to that point, so this year, Iowa has to play at Rutgers, which is not an easy game. They have to play at Iowa State. They play Indiana at home. They play at Camp Randall, Penn State at home, Oregon at home, at USC, at Nebraska. Like they could go under 500 this year. I'm not saying they will, but that schedule
I don't
is
think they're
not
gonna go under 500.
But it's not an easy schedule by any means.
It's not, but if you look at those toughest games, they're at home. What is it? Indiana, Oregon, Penn State, they get all those games at home. They're going to win one of those three.
Maybe. I don't know.
I think they will.
So, and then next year, or the following year, they play at Illinois, Nebraska, Ohio State, Wisconsin at home, at Michigan, at Minnesota, at Washington. Like that's not, and I know Big Ten West, that's not their old schedules.
I think a lot of people hear, when I say the Big Ten West thing, I think a lot of people hear me say the Big Ten West sucks, right? That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying the Big Ten West sucks, right? Was the Big Ten East better than the Big Ten West? Yeah, they won the conference championship every single year. Obviously, the Big Ten East was better. What I'm saying is that there was a brand of football being played in the Big Ten West, and Iowa was the best at playing that brand of football year in and year out.
That's a good point.
Now, maybe not in the early days of the Big Ten West because Wisconsin did dominate more in that time. But the Big Ten West in the 2020s played a very similar brand of football, except for about Purdue, right? And Kirk Ferentz was very, very good at playing that brand of football, and I think that helped them a lot.
This is a legit comment right here.
Hey, I read a top 100 players list in college football the other day.
Oh,
guess what?
Sorry.
Wow, okay, you want to get rid of me? Okay, I see how it is, Zach. I'm gonna take away your responsibilities here.
I was trying to mute my mic.
I was gonna say I was reading a top 100 players list in college football the other day, and there was one Iowa player on it. It was the punter. Day 1K is saying, bro is waiting for Iowa to fall off. Just let Iowa be Iowa.
I'm not. I like Iowa.
We're just raising questions. We're not waiting for Iowa to fall off here, man. I mean, if that's what you're hearing, to each their own. But that's not what we're trying to do here. Yeah. If it's coming off that way, that's not our intention.
Yeah, we're looking at the personnel and the coaching staff, and we're asking what is the future trajectory on the same path as their past? And I'm just not convinced it is right now.
I think we'll know more after this season. I'm not ready to say if it is or isn't. I think we'll know more after this season.
Yeah.
So there's my cop-out answer. All right. Zach, I should bring up one more thing because I did not tell you I'm bringing this up, but I want to bring it up so that way people will go over to the Twitter page and vote on this. All right.
Oh.
Okay. Did you see what I posted today?
What? I did not. What did you post?
Okay. All right. Here. If you're listening on podcasts, this is a part of the show where you're like, what? Really? They're going to do this? Yes. Yes, we are. All right. Let me bring this up I should have been better equipped here, but I didn't want to bring it up like this because it knew it would show right away. Eliminate one QB.
Oh, I
Zach,
did see this.
who would you eliminate? You got Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, Adrian Martinez, Justin Fields, Sean Clifford, J.J. McCarthy,
It's
Aiden O'Connell, Michael Penix, and Tanner Morgan.
it's Adrian
I was
Martinez. It's
okay.
Adrian Martinez. He was not good.
I was my homer self in the comments and said J.J. McCarthy. Just wanted to see what would happen, and my guy Reese on Twitter tagged a whole bunch of Ohio State accounts in the post, so now it's got over 100 likes. So well done there, Reese. I did not expect it to win. I just thought it would be a funny hater comment, but yeah, that seems to be the consensus for most other people. Adrian Martinez, Tanner Morgan. This was a pretty funny tweet. I'm not necessarily saying I agree with it, but that was a pretty funny tweet.
That was pretty good, but I disagree with the sentiment.
The picture.
Yeah, the picture.
Oh yeah.
The picture's phenomenal. It should be Adrian Martinez. I don't know how it's not Adrian Martinez. Did he have a winning year at Nebraska?
No, I don't think so.
He went 5-5 in 2019.
Yeah.
And then he was out and they didn't go to a bowl game.
Yeah. Well, but that was kind of never mind. That was mean. That was a mean thought. All right. Zach, good episode there. Hey everybody, we are going to do our intro for our next episode here. So don't go anywhere. We're not ending, but if you're listening on the podcast version, we're going to end this episode here. You can listen to the wide receiver previews tomorrow when we post that. If you're here on YouTube, stay with us. We're going to listen to the intro of that episode, and then we'll be right back talking wide receiver previews. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm JR, joined again here with Zach, and today we're breaking down the 2025 season's wide receiver talent in the Big Ten. Get ready for our definitive top 25 wide receiver rankings, spotlighting game changers who will dominate the field. We're also revealing our sleepers, players flying under the radar but poised to explode this season. Plus, we'll debate the best and the most underrated wide receiver rooms across the conference. This is the Big Ten Huddle, where we bring bold, insightful takes on every Big Ten team, celebrating the heart of college football's premier conference. Doesn't it feel great to say that? Premier conference. If you're on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe, and share your rankings in the comment section as well. If you're on podcasts, please do drop a 5-star review to help spread the word about the Big Ten Huddle, everything that we're providing for you over here. Catch our daily episodes Monday through Friday by 9 a.m. or join us live in the chat. Help contribute to the show in the chat. Our live YouTube shows Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram for more. Thanks for rocking with us. Let's dive into our wide receiver preview. I don't normally tout myself, but I think that was a really good graphic I made there at the end. So
that's very good.
Thank you.
I mean, I know we're starting a new episode for the podcast listeners, but for those who are here, we were just talking about Adrian Martinez. Did you know that he was the UFL MVP in 2024 and the UFL championship game MVP?
How many of those quarterbacks won championships, Zach? I mean, J.J. McCarthy did, but
yeah. The one that you wanted to get rid of, by the way.
I legitimately commented on it and just thought, I think this is going to be funny to see if Ohio State fans latch on us, and they did. So, sorry, JJ, you have been eliminated probably from the chat, from the post there. I'm going to post that again tomorrow, and I'm going to see who is the last one standing each and every day. So that'll be fun. All right, Zach, we are going to get to our wide receiver top 25 rankings. So the way this is going to work, we are going to go through and kind of summarize our rankings. Now, if you notice, there are some freshmen and players that haven't played yet. It's because we heard you. You let me know. I had people email me. I had people in the comment section. I had people reply on Twitter saying we want the projections. We don't want to just hear who is the best returning. That was for a while ago. We want to hear the projections now. Who do you think are going to be the best wide receivers in the Big Ten? So we're going to do it. We are going to talk about who we think are going to be the best wide receivers in the Big Ten. Some might say we're biased, but I put out there who are your top 3 wide receivers in the Big Ten, and pretty much all of them had both Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate in them. So I feel pretty good having Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate number 1 and 2. Zach, would you like to go ahead and summarize your top 25 real fast? You don't have to go name by name, but just kind of give us a summary of where you have guys and what your thoughts were with ranking them there.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the biggest thing. I mean, you texted me this after I sent you my list was 5 Ohio State receivers to 1 Michigan receiver. And at the time I had forgotten, and I left Donovan McCulley off, which made me just seem like all the more of a homer. But listen, can we just be honest?
I'm the homer, Zach. Normally I'm the homer.
Yeah, but let's just be clear. I feel very confident in saying Quincy Porter would start on most Big Ten teams this year. And so, yes, he may not get a lot of run, but we're talking about the best wide receivers in the Big Ten. Quincy Porter and Mylan Graham are absolutely 2 of the 25 best wide receivers in the Big Ten. They just may not get a lot of run. So but I have them ranked in the 16th and 15th. Brandon Inniss is 12th. Carnell Tate, and honestly, Inniss could rise. I need to see more from him. But I think it's clear Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate are 1 and 2. And then I think you could from 3 to 7. I had a tough time ranking, if I'm honest, because I think they're all really, really good. But I went with Elijah Surratt because of his production. I think he's just a dog out there. His attitude is great for the Hoosiers. And I think his quarterback is going to give him tremendous numbers this year. I think Marsh and Boston and Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane, all you could kind of throw a dart at, throw them all there. I do love Denzel Boston. I really do love him. I think Nick Marsh is probably going to elevate his game this year. I think Aiden Childs is going to get a little bit better. I had a tough time with DeCorian Moore because I think he could be a top 5 guy. I think he could be a top 3 guy. He might even be a top 2 guy, but we haven't seen it. And so and to be fair, when people were talking about Jeremiah Smith last year, I did not have him. Like, I thought Emeka Ibuka would be the leading receiver at Ohio State. So I think consistently, I'm not going to put DeCorian Moore anywhere near the top 5 yet, but he could be. I think he's that talented. I don't think he's Jeremiah Smith. That's my big caveat. He's not. But I think he could be. He certainly could work himself into the top 5. I think Pena, Key, Ross, those guys are key transfers that I think are really going to prove themselves for Penn State and Nebraska, respectively. And then I'll go with, I think, maybe one of the most underrated receiving rooms in the country, let alone the conference, is Rutgers. Like Ian Strong, DT Sheffield, I've got them 13th and 21st, respectively. I think they're really, really good. And then I think Indiana, really good receiver room with Omar Cooper. I have him at 17. Donovan McCulley, I think at 4. I'm going kind of scattershot here. I really think McCulley's going to break out this year for Michigan. I think Underwood is going to need, aside from tight ends, he's going to need a key target, and I think McCulley's going to be that guy. And then the rest of the list, I think some of the number 1 receivers for a number of teams: Griffin Wild, Javon Tracy, Vander Zee, Jeremiah McClellan for Oregon. He's going to be number 2 or number 3 with some of their other guys there, especially with Evan Stewart being out. So that's kind of my list in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think you are definitely high on Ohio State. I think that Ohio State probably has 5 of the top 25 best wide receivers in the Big Ten. I just don't think we're going to see it this year. And to me, I got to see it, right? We don't see enough rotation by Ohio State to see that. Where did I have Brandon Inniss at?
I think you had him at 10, but you put Evan Stewart there by accident instead.
Oh, I did put Evan Stewart. I apologize. Okay. Yeah, I put Evan Stewart in there by accident. Thank you for pointing. Yep, I just looked at it on here. I had both Evan Stewart and Brandon Ennis, so I apologize for that. I'll fix that here in just a moment. So I have Jeremiah Smith number one, Carnell Tate number two. I don't think there's a whole lot of discussion there. I could see Elijah Surratt too instead of Carnell Tate. I could see Carnell Tate being as low as six if somebody really wanted to make that argument. I wouldn't agree with it, but I could see that argument. Under them, I have Makai Lemon number four. I just think Makai Lemon was a dog last year, getting open, always available for his quarterback, whoever it was. It didn't seem like he had much of a drop off, whoever the quarterback was, and he ended the season really well. Obviously, Jacoby Lane was the one that had 6 touchdowns in the last 2 games of the season. Who was that against? Notre Dame and Texas A&M. Like those are two good teams. So to have 6 touchdowns in the last 2 games of the season, but I just thought Makai Lemon was more consistent throughout the year. I think that he was a main target for the quarterback, whether it was Miller Moss or Jaden Mayava all season long. And I just think Makai Lemon deserves more credit for how good he was. Denzel Boston, fantastic as well. We both have him at number five. I think he could be higher than that. Who was he with last year in Washington? Why am I blanking on the other wide receiver at Washington's name last year? But anyway, sorry. They were kind of the duo last year, so I think Denzel Boston's going to really boost himself as being the guy in that wide receiver room this year. Nick Marsh, Michigan State. He's young, and I don't know if he's going to have as good of a season as a Makai Lemon or a Denzel Boston. I mean, he's obviously fantastic. I just think I just think the Big Ten has a ton of really good wide receivers this year, and Nick Marsh being sixth on my list just like confirms that because he is one of the best wide receivers in the nation. We talked about it. He could be an All-American at the end of the season. But for him to be sixth, I don't think it's any slight at him. It's just that's the way it is. Decoy Moore, number seven. I think they're going to have a main target. And from everything we hear about Dante Moore and Decorian Moore, the Moore to Moore relationship, I think is going to be huge. I think he's going to get peppered with targets. I think he's going to be kind of like Tez Johnson was for them last year. And especially with Evan Stewart being out, that's going to be huge for Decorian Moore and how much they're going to trust him. Jacoby Lane, kind of went over him a little bit already. Dane Key, I have a number 9. Number 10, I actually have Brandon Ennis. I just put Evan Stewart there by accident. I apologize. Evan Stewart, I probably would have had somewhere around top 10, but we're assuming he is injured and out for the season, so we do not have him ranked. Trevor Pena, Devontae Ross. I don't know which one's going to be better. I just put them right next to each other because I thought one of these two is going to be borderline top 10, if not top 10. And if one of those guys is top 10, top 8, you're looking at close to, if not a championship season for Penn State, not just in the Big Ten, but in the national championship as well. There's going to be a lot on them because if they are, that means that Drew Howler has a really good season as well. Number 13, wanted to make sure I didn't sleep on the Maryland Terrapins. Octavian Smith was the third option for that team last year. Going to be looked upon as a leader this year for them. Somebody I don't think that Big Ten fans should sleep on. And then I'm with you on Rutgers. Ian Strong, DT Sheffield. Got him 14 and 16 there. I just think they're going to be a really good duo. I really like who they are. I think Sheffield had a really good year at North Texas. Jeremiah McClellan at 15th. Think he's going to be a big part. Another young option for them. It's going to be a young wide receiver core for Oregon this season. And then Donovan McCulley. I'm not necessarily buying the huge hype for Donovan McCulley. I think he's going to be really good. But I also have concerns with the way last year ended, right? He kind of didn't end well with him at Indiana last year. It's presumed some of that was because he didn't like kind of some of the hard attitude and stuff like that Kirk Cinetti brought into Indiana. We'll see if that's the case, but if you didn't like Kirk Cinetti's hard attitude, we just heard Justice Haynes talk about the hard attitude at Michigan this year, so I don't know how that's going to work out for him. Griffin Wild, Northwestern, really good wide receiver at South Dakota State last year. If we're going to give Mark Gronowski credit, we got to give Griffin Wild credit as well. Did a really good job. Hudson Clement, I think Illinois is going to have a ton of production across the board in their wide receiver room this year. So Hudson Clement's probably the one that I'm banking on the most, but I could definitely see somebody else have a really good year for Illinois. Just it's going to kind of be a room effort. Reese Vanderzee for Iowa, have high hopes for him. Jaleel Farouk for Maryland, coming back from Oklahoma, coming back home. Gary Bryant Jr., Oregon. Think he could have a big season this year. Buying him a little bit more than I am the Jerrion Dickey. And then Omar Cooper, Javon Tracy, and had to put my guy in there, Vinny Anthony. Zach, there's a lot of buzz for the Wisconsin wide receiver room this year. Not sure I'm buying it, but there's a lot of buzz for it, and that could be an underrated wide receiver room. We'll get to wide receiver rooms here in a second. But Zach, what are the main differences in our two rankings you want to bring up?
Well, before I get to differences, I'm surprised that you picked Bryant over Justice Lowe, because you seem to be high on him about a week ago when we were doing this show. What was kind of the change?
I was, and then there was an interview that came out with Gary Bryant Jr., and it sounds like the media is pumping him up much more than Justice Lowe. So I actually think I need to revert that a little bit and go from Justice Lowe to possibly Gary Bryant Jr. this season instead, because it seems like there's more comfort with his veteranness that he brings into the room. Justice Lowe is still only a redshirt sophomore. Like let's not act like he's a redshirt senior or anything like that. Gary Bryant Jr. is. He was injured last year. But 2 years ago he had a good year, and I think he could bring a lot of veteran presence into the wide receiver room for Oregon. And so combining that, the media attention, I think they're probably going to lean more on Gary Bryant this season now with the Evan Stewart injury happening.
Okay. No, that's helpful. I had thought about Bryant. My concern with him, I mean, was a high prospect, right? Was 50th in the 2020 class. He's a 6th year senior. So I think I'm just concerned, like Gary Bryant.
Yeah, he's a 6th year senior. Yeah.
So I'm concerned. I'm like, so why haven't we seen it yet? Is probably my biggest question. But if the media is pumping him up, great. But that's why I didn't have him on my list. I was like, 5th year senior hasn't done anything yet. PFF, which I know PFF is kind of all over the place, but didn't look good for him in PFF.
PFF does not like Oregon's wide receivers at all.
That's fair. Apparently they don't know what they're doing, but they probably don't know what Oregon's doing. So, but yeah, I think our top 8 is all the same, but it's just kind of mixed up a little bit. Like we have the same 3, and then 4 through 8 are kind of all mixed up together. I think you are higher. Let's see, where are you higher? You're higher on Jeremiah McClellan than I am, and Octavian Smith than I am.
I just think Maryland is going to throw the ball a lot this season. Our guy Larry messaged us about Nolan Ray, sleeping on him a little bit. Totally get that, and he could have a good season this year. But I just think Mike Locksley, he is a throw the ball kind of guy. And I think Octavian Smith last year kind of ran second fiddle to Caden Prather, and I mean, not kind of, he was second fiddle to Prather and Ty Felton last year. I think this is going to be his year. I think he's going to really boost. I think there are some people thinking it's going to be Jaleel Farouk that's going to do that. I think it's going to be Octavian Smith. I think he's going to be more of a leader on this team this year, and I could see him having a top 15 type of season.
Yeah, and he's a senior, so like has that senior leadership. I think it's helpful to think too, like Ty Felton, and in general, receivers at Maryland have produced very well and have had NFL caliber players come out of there. So they develop quarterbacks, or they develop wide receivers really well. They're going to want to throw the ball. They're running back bell cow Roman Hemby's now with Indiana, so it makes sense that he would get a lot of run.
For sure. Let's look at a couple comments really fast, and then we'll get to our thoughts on the room. Okay. Max is all into Elijah Surratt. Totally with you there. Day 1K was thinking like you. Brandon is, yeah, sorry about that. I'll fix that here in just a moment. Should be number 10. Let's see. Dave says we're both homers, but I have no idea if Michigan guys are on the list. Yeah. I think Donovan McCulley definitely deserves to be on there. Fred Moore could have a good season this year, and then we'll see what happens with Samaj I almost said P. Ryan.
Samaj
Samaj
Morgan.
Morgan. P. Ryan was the running back for the Bengals.
Yep.
Samaj Morgan could have a good year too. It kind of depends on how they use him, right? I mean, I think Bryce Young is going to lock in with Donovan McCulley this year.
Bryce Young,
Bryce Underwood. Gosh, I hate that I do that all the time. Bobby Mack picking it up. JR, you have $3, only $2. Yeah, I'll fix it. Sorry, guys. Sorry. That's me trying to do graphics too quickly on the fly. My apologies. Philip says Clement could easily go higher, and I think Hank Betty could be on the back end of this list for sure. That was one of the reasons why I just didn't have a second Illinois receiver. I just don't know who it's going to be, right? I think Trimble, the true freshman coming in, could be really good for him. I think Betty could be really good for him. I just don't know who it's going to be. So it's not that I'm low on Illinois' wide receiver room. I think they did a good job of going out and getting guys and bringing in good players. I just don't know who it's going to be because right now they got 4 or 5 guys that I think could be consistent contributors for this team. And when that happens, sometimes it's hard to pinpoint, a guy or two that are going to be them, right? Ohio State, they don't rotate their wide receivers very much. We know they're probably going to have 3 guys that are in the top 10, or close to the top 10, if not top 15, right? Indiana, kind of the same way. Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper Jr. We'll see what happens with their slot. Tyler Morris going down for them. EJ Williams could be possibly that guy. We'll see, but that's just kind of how it goes. Oregon's kind of the same way, right? Oregon doesn't really have a dude right now with Evan Stewart going down. We'll have to see what happens. Let's see. Max says no receivers on the list for UCLA. Bad outlook for Nico. Zach, I don't know about you. I just don't know. Don't know who it's gonna be for UCLA.
Quasi Gilmer.
Quasi Gilmer is probably going to be that dude. Rico Flores did come over from Notre Dame last year. I believe he could be a guy for them as well. We'll see, but I did my rankings out to 30, and Quasi Gilmer was actually number 27 for me. So I guess I'll just share the rest of mine. I had Ja'Cory Barney Jr., number 26, Quasi Gilmer, 27, Trey Kekahuna at Wisconsin, number 28, Isaiah Hunter for Nebraska, number 29, and then Miley Graham was number 30 for me.
So you did have guys. You did have a 4th Ohio State guy on your list.
I did. I just can't fit 30 guys on one graphic.
That's fair.
Actually, 60 guys because I'm putting 2 on there.
I do think, just to Max's question, I do think the issue with UCLA is I think we just don't. There's a lot of unknowns, and the recruiting pedigree isn't there. But that doesn't mean that UCLA is in trouble. I think you have to realize
Gilmer was a top 250 guy on 3. He was 2022 or 222nd. So he's a good recruit. But yeah.
Yeah, but he's young, right? He's going to be a sophomore this year. So
played last year. What do you have? Like 200, 300 some yards?
Yeah, 345 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, he's got experience. I think he could end up being really good. I think it's just, you don't have the same pedigree with some of these other guys, but that doesn't, this is a really good receiving year, year for receivers in the Big Ten.
For sure. And it's, how many of these guys are going to go 2nd round or higher? Honestly. Yeah. I think your entire top 5, other than Jeremiah Smith, goes 2nd round or higher. Jacoby Lane probably goes 3rd or 2nd round.
Yeah.
Dane Key could go as high as 2nd round. I don't think he's a 1st round guy, but he could go as high as 2nd round.
Yeah.
Trevor Payne is probably a 3rd or 4th round guy.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of NFL draft picks on this list.
Yeah. And Octavian Smith could play himself into being a 6th, 5th round pick, maybe higher.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and there's a lot of young guys on the list too that can play themselves into it, right? And then the Rutgers receivers could play their way in. McCulley with his measurables could. Griffin Wild, there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys that could play their way into the draft.
No worries, I fixed Brandon Innis. Sorry, guys.
There we go.
That makes me feel better. Donovan McCulley is a great call. He could be somebody that is drafted 5th round or better, as long as he has a good year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, can we see 2 Rutgers receivers get drafted, Zach?
I think you'll at least see one,
I think
maybe
so.
2.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about best wide receiver rooms and then a couple underrated rooms. All right, so I'll go first with my top 5 wide receiver rooms, and then we'll get yours, Zach. My top 5 in the order: number 1, Ohio State, followed by USC, Penn State, Indiana, Oregon. Number 5. I got Nebraska. Who did I have right outside of that? I had Nebraska. I have it written down. Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State, and Maryland right outside of that top 5. Who were your top 5, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, my top 5. I think Ohio State is clearly number 1. Clearly number 1.
Yeah, they're number 1 in the nation. There's no argument there.
Yeah, I have Indiana at 2. I think that Surratt and Cooper and some of the other guys they've brought in, like, I just think it's a really gritty, good room. And with Mendoza throwing to him, I feel really good about that receiver room this year. USC at 3. I like Lemon and Lane together, and again, I think they have other guys in that room as well that really hold up well. Penn State at 4. I think they've tremendously upgraded that room. I'm not sure I'm with you that they're a top 3 room, but I've got them at 4. And then I have Nebraska at 5. I think they're underrated, right? Dane Key, Barney. They have other guys in that room too. I think I would have Oregon higher, but I want to see DeCorian Moore and McClellan play first.
You're warming up to Indiana fans with that, Zach.
Hey, I got a reputation to uphold, right? Like I've been high on Indiana for a while.
I would probably have Indiana over Penn State if I knew who their slot receiver was going to be, and I felt really reliable about it.
That's fair.
Know? So
yeah,
if EJ Williams turns out to be a dude, which he really could be, we'll see. But yeah.
Yeah, but so let me ask this: for a number 1 and number 2 with Surratt and Cooper, is that the best 1 and 2 on this list? Not named Ohio State.
No, USC is better.
Oh yeah, that.
I think USC
with
is
my
better.
Whole list, then.
I think
disagree with myself.
Well, no, I see what you're saying though. Like, what USC went out and got the Boise State receiver to be their 3rd option. You know, I'm not saying anything bad about him. I just don't know. So I can see, in Surratt, his star ability could way higher to bring him up there. So I see what you're saying. I personally would take USC, but I also think more of Mekhi Lehman than you do. I mean, a couple spots more. It's not all that much. So yeah, no, I think best wide receiver duos in the Big Ten probably goes Ohio State, USC, Penn State, Indiana, Rutgers, Maryland.
Yeah.
I mean, well, and maybe Oregon, but we just don't know who that second dude is going to be. Like, it's probably going to be DeCorian Moore and somebody else. Is it Jeremiah McClellan? Is it Gary Bryant Jr.? Is it Justice Lowe? We just don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the crazy thing you just mentioned. Like, so Oregon's a big question mark because I think everybody expects them to be great, but they're young. I think Washington has a lot of question marks because Denzel Washington. I keep doing this.
Okay.
Bryce Young, Denzel Washington.
What a team!
Yeah, the man from the Pelican Brief is on my football team. Denzel Boston, who plays for Washington. I think he is a superstar wide receiver, and I think the guys they have around him in that room, I think, is going to be good. But the room that I'm really excited to watch is Rutgers, because traditionally they have not been a receiver-led team, but you have Sheffield, you have other guys in that room who are underrated and really talented. And so I'm excited, and I'm excited for Kaliak Manis. I know a lot of people aren't high on him, but there were games where he was slinging the ball and they were scoring a ton of points. So I like Rutgers as an honorable mention, as underrated. I like Washington, certainly Oregon. I don't think Oregon's underrated, but I think they're coming.
Yeah. PK is correct here. Cal's wide receiver will be playing in the slot. Jonathan Brady failed to bring him up. Thank you for reminding us there, PK. Yeah, Jonathan Brady been a good receiver for Cal the past 3 years. I mean, he's played every year that he's been there. He's just not had like he had 600 yards in 2023. But you know, McCauley also had 600 some yards in 2023. So I mean, I think he had more touchdowns than Brady did too. So, and that was in a tougher conference. Well, was the Big Ten tougher? Or the tougher defense in the Big 10 in 2023. So, we sleeping on Minnesota here, Zach? Malachi Coleman, Javon Tracy, Justin Boat. No, not Justin Boat. That's Illinois. Logan Loya coming from UCLA. Lemeke Brockington, young receiver.
Yeah. I mean,
no, he's not young. He's 2021. Sorry. Malachi Coleman's 2022. Sorry.
I don't know if I would say we're sleeping on them. I think they're solid. I think they're good. I just don't know if I'd be like, they're a top, I think they might be in the top half of the Big Ten or like right in that hinge point, like 10, 9, 10. But I don't think we're sleeping on them.
I have them right now 13th in the Big Ten in my wide receiver room rankings. And that is primarily because I think Minnesota's going to run the crap out of the ball. You got Darius Taylor, AJ Turner. I mean, those are two top 15 running backs we had in the Big Ten. I think they're going to run the crap out of the ball. And I think they're going to ask Drake Lindsey to do some, but I don't think they're going to ask Drake Lindsey to do too much. I think this is a wide receiver room that builds, gets better. They do have some veterans there. Javon Tracy, Malachi Coleman's a 2022. He's probably the youngest guy that's going to play. Correct me if I'm wrong, but so they do have some. Logan Loya, I mean, he's probably going to be a punt returner for him if, splitting that time with Coy Parrish. But
so are you saying that Minnesota's going to out Iowa?
No, I didn't say that. I actually have Minnesota's wide receiver room ranked one spot higher than Iowa's. I have Iowa at 14th.
Right. What I mean is that they're going to out Iowa, and that they're going to run the crap out of the ball and play good defense. And
yeah, well, I do think Minnesota has a really good chance to play some really good defense this year. I think the interior of their defensive line is being slept on a little bit. They have some older guys there. If they can play, if they can have good cornerback play, I think that's going to be a good defensive season for Minnesota this year. Sorry, this is a wide receiver preview. We'll get back to the wide receivers. All right, what was the other question I wanted to ask you, Zach? Yeah. Actually, I think that's all I had. Anything else wide receiver wise in the Big Ten you want to bring up?
We haven't talked about him because it's kind of a foregone conclusion, but I am very curious to see what the relationship between Julian Sayin and Jeremiah Smith is, and how, I have no doubt that Smith will get his touches, but I'm curious about how a new quarterback is going to impact his play, and how a year of film is going to impact how defenses guard him. I think that is I think it's just a storyline to watch out for, because I could totally see where, Texas has 3 guys on him again and they lock him up in the first game and people are like, oh, Jeremiah Smith, he stinks. And it's like, no, he had 3 guys on him.
I think part of me ranking Carnell Tate second is because of that, right? Because I do think there are going to be teams that key in on Jeremiah Smith, and similar to how we saw Carnell Tate emerge in that Texas game, we're going to have to see it. I mean, probably week 1 again. Texas did a really good job of defending Jeremiah Smith in that game. You're probably going to have to see Julian Sayin go more to Carnell Tate than he will to Jeremiah Smith in that game. I mean, if they take him away like they should.
Yep.
So, last thing I'll ask you on, and then we'll move on. Get out of here. Wisconsin's wide receiver room. There's a lot of buzz for it this year. They bring back Trek Kakahuna, Vinny Anthony, leading receiver last year. Bring him back. Jaden Ballard is there, a former Ohio State wide receiver. Kind How do you feel about Wisconsin's wide receiver room? Right now, I actually have them ranked 11th, right behind Rutgers in my wide receiver room rankings. I'll post these later this week, but I think there could be some buzz there. I was listening to a Wisconsin podcast and they ranked Wisconsin's wide receiver room as the best position group on their team.
If I'm going to get Wisconsin fans to hate me right now.
Okay. Well, I didn't say all Wisconsin fans said that. I just said one.
If they think that the receivers is the best position group on the team, they're in trouble.
Well, who should be the best position group?
The offensive line.
Yeah, but they lost their left tackle in spring practice.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
That's who Wisconsin is.
You got a Central Michigan guy. I forget what his name is, but you got a Central Michigan guy starting at left tackle for you this season. I'd have more confidence in the backup wide receiver at Ohio State than I would the left tackle from Central Michigan.
Yes, but what I mean is if you're a Wisconsin fan and you're being told that Ohio State's 7th wide receiver might be your number 2 and that's your best position group and on your team, you're in trouble.
I mean, but like, isn't it true that like we talk about Ohio State's wide receiver room, we talk about how their number 1 and number 2 are the best in the Big Ten. Wouldn't their number? You literally have 5 in the top 20.
I'll be honest. I am not high on Jayden Ballard. I never really have been. Okay. I think he's a good kid. He stuck it out at Ohio State for a lot of years, but and maybe he'll do well at Wisconsin. I just have a hard time believing, and this is like, it's similar with Julian Fleming, who has a good, I love Julian Fleming, but at some point it just became very obvious that he was not the guy that everybody thought he was. And when he went to Penn State, we kind of knew he's not going to be the number 1 guy there either. And Penn State fans were asking like, hey, do you think like Julian Fleming might be the best wide receiver on the team? And I'm like, I hope not. And like, he wasn't. And I think it could be a similar thing at Wisconsin with Jayden Ballard, is that I think it's less of he got buried on the depth chart in the sense that he was improving, but other guys surpassed him. I'm just not sure he was ever. I think he was not rated accurately coming out of high school.
Is there something to be said about a player who maybe he's not as good as other players in the nation, but he is that gadget player who stretches the field for you, right? Maybe not gadget's the right word, but he's somebody that can stretch the field for you. The defense always has to have a safety, somewhere in the vicinity so they can't sell out for the run. I mean, is there something to that would change your mind at all? Maybe he's not exactly the best player, but he is such a deep threat that the defenses have to respect him.
I mean, I think to a degree, but again, I think if that's your best position group is a guy is a one-trick pony, that concerns me. And part of it is we've had just concerns about Wisconsin for the past forever. So I think that's more my concern. Like if they're 11th, I don't know if I'd say they're 11th. I think they're probably a little lower than that, but I respect your opinion.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me give you the teams under them, and you tell me if you'd have them over the teams I have under them. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Would you have Wisconsin over Illinois?
I don't know. I think they're close. I actually might. I'd probably put Minnesota ahead of them.
Okay. Iowa?
No.
Michigan?
I think it depends on McCulley.
Okay.
Probably.
Northwestern?
No. Yeah, I'd have Wisconsin above Northwestern.
Okay, so you'd probably have Wisconsin more like 12 or 13th, with Minnesota, maybe Illinois, maybe Michigan ahead of them.
Yeah, I'd say the 12 to 14 range.
Okay.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, I don't.
that's
Yeah,
bad if that's the best position group on your team.
right.
I mean, even 11th is bad if that is. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah,
My point
Kansas.
wasn't to say you were wrong, but
No, I know what
it
you're
was
saying.
to say like if that's your best position group, then I'm alarmed.
We have Kansas State chatter in the chat. The good chef. He's from our college huddle. Kansas State. Can't say the
Does
name on
he
here. I don't
know
want it to get
something
flagged.
that we don't?
Well,
That Kansas State's coming to the Big Ten. That's going to be next week, isn't it?
yeah. Well, maybe that's Tuesday. We need some more content, and people love the conference realignment show. So maybe we'll just start a rumor and say Kansas State's coming to the Big Ten. Good chef. I apologize. I do not know a ton about Kansas State's wide receiver room. The only thing I can say that is if you're relying on a Purdue transfer wide receiver, that would not be my favorite thing in the world.
Hey, we're relying on a Purdue transfer at tight end.
Yeah, but he was really good.
Are you saying that one was a specimen and the other wasn't?
Yes.
Okay.
This is not a specimen.
DK, we're sorry. We're sorry, DK.
Hey, he says Kansas State could have won the Big Ten West a couple times, though.
That's probably
they would have been in contention, definitely.
Yeah, and they won the Big 12 the year that they beat TCU, who then beat Michigan in the playoffs. So
Yeah, and they got George Fitzpatrick as their starting left tackle, and the linebacker. What's his name from Marysville?
Gabe Powers.
Gabe Powers. That's right. Yep. Yeah, I'm. Well, I don't want to dox myself. I've heard that name before. That's all I'll say. Yeah, you got Gabe Powers there at linebacker too. Yeah, you got some Big Ten power there at Kansas State. Yep, he says Gabe Powers.
Some legit power.
There you go. So, all right, Zach. Anything else to get to before we get out of here?
No, except a happy Father's Day to all.
And to all, a good night. Yes, happy Father's Day to all of you. Really appreciate everybody being here, whether you listen to the first podcast and this one, or whether you're listening on YouTube, live, after the fact, whatever it is. We appreciate you listening. Even if you're on Twitter, hey, if you're on Twitter, give us a repost. All right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't ask for a lot in our lives. Okay, we ask for a 5-star review every now and then, a like, all that stuff, a comment. Give us a repost on Twitter. Help us out. Do all that for us. We appreciate you being here. Zach, we'll see you on Tuesday. Everybody else, you can check out the podcast version Monday morning by 9 a.m. And then Tuesday morning, you can get this wide receiver preview version as well. We're going to post it on YouTube as well. So get all your Big Ten content at the Big Ten Huddle, YouTube and podcast, Apple, Spotify, all those different sections there. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. Have a good one.